Hey guys, Besa Gordon here. So as you can see, I am not at iHeart right now. I'm actually at Converge Media because I have a special guest with me. I interviewed her a couple years ago when I was at Cube. Her name is Ashley McGirt, and she is over the Therapy Fund Foundation. As you guys know, this week there's been a lot of suicide. There's been a lot of mental health talk. So I felt like while she's here, this is an amazing time to actually give you guys some tips on how to really deal with that mental health with everything that seems to be going on in the world. Ashley McGirt, how are you?
I'm great. I'm super excited to be here, especially now and having this conversation.
Heck yeah, you got like we were talking about backstage, it's so interesting to me because with the pandemic, a lot of people had suicide. A lot of people had mental health issues. And personally, I don't know about anyone else, but I thought that once the world kind of started opening up again, it would kind of slow down. But it almost seems like it's ramping up, whether it's because people are losing jobs, maybe relationships didn't work out and they're just kind of realizing where they're at in life, or just whatever is going on. People are very, very stressed out and they're not dealing with it very, very well. You have rappers dying, you have business owners dying. We just had the whole Bed Bath and Beyond situation, and we all have seen Kanye West ranting and raving for about 3 days at a time with anything that was going on with his ex-wife to working with the Gap. As someone that has been working in therapy for so long, I would love to know what are some of your tips for people to just deal with that anxiety when they just feel like, I don't know what to do right now.
Yeah. So you said you said a lot, and I just want to say, while it seems like a lot of this has been happening because of the pandemic, these mental health stressors have been going on forever. We just weren't ever talking about them as a community. So I love that now we're having the conversation. We're talking about it more because the reality is suicide is the third leading cause of death for Black male youth, and we don't mention it. Cornelius, Jet Jackson, Thomas Lee Curtis, I believe that's his actual name, completed suicide. And we didn't really talk about it in our community or the individuals we actually know. And then when it comes to anxiety, which anxiety, depression, these can be symptoms that lead to suicidal ideation that actually lead to suicide. Some tips really for it is just recognizing that it's okay to worry about things. Is the worry becoming debilitating? Is it impacting your daily behaviors? And in that case, you want to get a good routine, like working out, exercising, reducing things off your mental plate. What can you take away right now from your plate? So speaking of plates, you could invest in paper plates so you don't have to wash the dishes all the time. Or, if you have a lot going on right now, maybe invest in a low maintenance hairstyle. Put your hair in braids so you don't have to worry about doing your hair every day. Lean on your support system. Who can help you out? These are some things that you can do.
It sounds like it's like those little day-to-day things that you don't think stress you out actually kind of build upon that stress, that whether it's at work, whether it's with family, whether it's with kids. Question, we always say things like, seek therapy. Black people need to seek therapy. But I feel like a lot of times they don't know where to start. And sometimes people don't know what to ask when they're trying to find that perfect therapist for them. Like, you can have a perfect therapist for you, but doesn't work for me. You know what I'm saying? Right. So do you have any like tips for people in finding that or just asking those right questions?
Well, one, knowing that, like you said, there's the perfect therapist for you, there's the perfect therapist for me. So kind of think of it like dating. And when it comes to finding a therapist, you need to find someone who's a good fit for you, someone who you can trust, who you can build that good rapport with. So the very first conversation is really going to be critical. And that's going to be that consultation that you have with a therapist. And it's going to be asking them questions like, hey, do you specialize in anxiety? Have you ever worked with Black people before? If you identify as a Black person, have you ever worked with the LGBTQ community? Whatever population it is that you align yourself with, you want to ask those questions. Whatever it is you're experiencing, you want to ensure that the therapist actually has that training. So many people reach out to me for couples counseling. I am not a relationship therapist. I am the wrong person to come to, so I have to refer out. But asking those questions, because some clinicians may try, knowing that they're not a couples counselor, and sit there and try to actually help you through that. And you never actually ask them, like, is this something you've done? Have you ever helped couples before? And me, I'll tell you, no, I've never done couples counseling ever. because I knew that that wasn't an area that I didn't want to focus in. So, but asking those questions, looking into their background, verifying their license. You can go to the Department of Health and you can type in a name. You could type in my name, Ashley McGirt, if that's all the information that you have, and it'll show you, when did I first receive my license? Do I have any complaints on my license? Which that is extremely important. If someone actually has a founded complaint that's been on their license, that means they've caused some sort of harm, there was some sort of complaint, and it actually takes a lot for you to actually have a founded complaint, because anybody could say anything about me if they wanted, say anything about you. The state is going to do their due diligence to actually make sure that the complaint is founded.
So that means it's verified. Like
Right.
you did that.
Right. And you can see that and also ensure, like, is it active? You know, are they an associate clinician? Because in order to become a fully independent licensed therapist, whether it's a licensed marriage family therapist, a licensed independent clinical social worker, which is what I am, you need to at some point be an associate, which that means you're operating under a supervisor. So there's a licensed clinician above you who is monitoring you, making sure that you're doing the work. If that's the case, you want to look into who is their supervisor. What is their supervisor's background? How often do they meet with their supervisor? Are they sharing that information? Because if they're an associate level clinician, that means that your conversation is not just between you and them, because they actually have to go back and share that with their supervisor. So these are some of the things, and that's a little deeper, you know, license. And then also recognizing that there is bias in the licensing process, especially when it comes to Black clinicians. It's a very difficult test. Thankfully, I'm a good test taker and I was able to pass my first go around, but that is not the case for most people of color, because the way that it's set up for white clinicians. It asks things about certain behaviors that might not necessarily show up in communities of color. So you have to be able to know how to navigate that. It's a very intense process, 4,000 clinical hours in most states. Yeah, Washington and California have like the most amount of hours, and I think Hawaii is up there as well. So just looking into that. And again, just having a conversation with them. Most therapists offer at least a free 15-minute consultation, and you can find out a lot about a person. Are you laughing? Like, do you feel a good vibe? What's the energy? And just remember, don't give up, because it's like, again, it's like dating. You got to sometimes date multiple people until you find the one. You have to see multiple therapists until you get the thing that you need.
I think that's a huge point, because I feel like a lot of times, especially people of color, you know, we'll go to therapy, we'll go like 1 or 2 times. We don't like that therapist.
We done.
We might, if someone convinces us, see a different therapist. But usually you'll see that one therapist and you're like, oh, this is what therapy is like. I don't like that. And it's like everyone has their own style. And so you really, you do have to kind of think of it like dating. I never thought of it that way, but you have to keep going around until you find the one, and be okay with letting a therapist go and be like, your style isn't working for me.
Yes. And speak up, because 9 times out of 10, you're paying for it, whether you're paying out of pocket or you're using your insurance benefits that you're paying for through your employer or a spouse or whatever the case. We know how that works, but it's something you're invested in. So you need to speak up and say, like, hey, I would like to focus on this during my session. You have the power to do that. I let my clients know, like, let me know if I'm talking too fast, if I'm focusing on an area that maybe you want to talk on something different this week. What are your goals? I'm a solution focused therapist, so I'm always looking at, what is the solution? How do we fix the problem? If you want to just vent, fine, we can create space for that too. But at the end of the day, I'm always looking at, what's the end goal? How can I graduate you out of my session so that you don't have to come here every week, or get you down to maybe once a month or quarterly, something like that.
And then, you know, lastly, with everything that has been going on, and as you said, suicide has been a thing for a minute. We just don't talk about it. What signs can we really look out for, especially in our youth, to be like, I really want you to talk to someone? You know, especially when they're like high school and really even in middle school, because even I was going to a therapist when I was in middle school. I was lucky enough to where like my high school and my middle school, they had a psychiatrist in there. So I was able to go and seek psychiatry like once a week or once a month. And, you know, if I missed a session, they would be like, hey girl, where you at? You know what I'm saying? But it was very helpful for me. But I just knew that that was something that I wanted to do. But for a lot of these kids, it's too late.
Yeah, and so when it comes to that and the youth, basically looking at their behaviors, are they isolating? Are they acting out? How are they showing up? Are their clothes disheveled? There's a lot of different factors. What's their appetite like? Were they a person that was very talkative and now they're no longer talking? Or are they talking more? Are they actually expressing? Because the reality is, a lot of people will be blatant and be like, I don't want to live anymore. I want to do this. I don't want to be here. So actually listening to that, are they drawing certain characteristics that may seem like, oh, they got a lot of tombstones, a lot of artwork around death? That can be a sign as well. So just looking into that, actually having conversations, asking them how do they feel. Sometimes it's very, very difficult when it comes to the youth because they know the things that they should say or that they think you want to hear. So if you feel that there is a youth who may be suicidal, then you want to bring in a professional like myself who can actually do a clinical assessment.
So, to wrap this up, what is something that you would love to see the state of Washington and California, where you're at now, do for just their citizens, mental health wise, before the year is over, or at least start working on something to make life for everyone a little better within the next year?
I would love to see really the United States as a whole look at the way that insurance not diagnosis, but the way that insurance approves billing, because right now they do it from a crisis centered model. A lot of my clients, they're high functioning. They may not necessarily have a DSM diagnosis, which is our therapist Bible tool that we use to diagnose people. So if they don't have a DSM diagnosis, I cannot bill insurance. And so I would like to see that change so that people can get preventative care for those individuals who are high functioning and may not necessarily have a diagnosis. So that's one thing that everyone across the country can participate in. I would also love to see mental health access for everyone. I would love to see the way that the licensing process is set up change. We really need to have some sort of interstate like a parity act to where if you're a licensed clinician in Washington, you can serve in California, Oregon, and not have to do additional courses. It should, or if your client moves, then you can no longer see that client. And we have to change the way that we serve because, if I have a client who's been working with me for a while and then they moved to New York, I'm not licensed in New York. I then have to refer them. And we just did all that work, built that relationship up. So I would love to see the system change. And there's a little ways around it to where you can do like an adjustment period and I can see them maybe for a couple of weeks, but I'm supposed to be working on finding them a provider that they can see. So that's another thing. I mean, I have a whole list of things: funding, paying therapists, pay us for this work that we do that is so necessary. Policies, change the policies. It's suicide prevention and awareness month, so I really want us to look at the policies when it comes to how we are looking at crisis for Black women, Black men, our trans community, our non-binary community. What are the policies in your state? Who are the people that you're voting in place? What focus are they on when it comes to behavioral health? What have they done if they've already been in office? Have they actually followed through with those promises? So those are just a little bit, but we could be here all day if I tell you all the things I want to see in Washington and Oregon, all across the globe, really. But these are just some small changes that we can start with when it comes to insurance companies, affordability, making sure the reimbursement rate is not just $30. Like, that is not okay for a master's level clinician, and the work that we have to do when essentially it breaks down to less than minimum wage for all the work that we're doing.
And real quick, do you ever think that there will be a point where your job, your healthcare actually includes a mental health day? Like, I've heard rumors about that, but I feel like that would be dope if we had a
It
nice mental
does.
health
It
day.
already does. I mean, I work for myself. I'm the business owner, and we have mental health days. I actually force my staff to take off if I see that they're stressed, and they're like, "No, I'm gonna work," because we're so conditioned as a people to just work, just show up for the job. But honestly, you're no good to me and my company if you're no good to yourself. So I really stress that. And I think it is changing. I see it with Amazon employees, Microsoft, other organizations who are stressing these mental health days. They're bringing in actual therapists. They're bringing in massage therapists as well, just as ways to relax their staff. So yeah, I think there's a day, and there's already a day with me and my team.
Yeah, that's dope. And I definitely think that we need that even with like students in school. Like maybe they're stressed out and they're just like, I don't, I'm going through puberty. I need to like stay home for a day and get my brain together rather than being like, I'm sick. Like, this is a mental health day. Like,
And we do
leave
that
me
with
alone.
our boys. If they need a mental health day, they could take a mental health day. And as parents, I think we need to allow our children that space the same way we take breaks from work. They need a break from school sometimes. And I think we need to really stress that more and not shame people for taking time off. Like, oh, you were gone. What's going on? It's not your business. If they didn't tell you why they were gone, why are you asking that? Like, they needed a day, and that's okay. We can take that day.
I definitely think that it is a time that we really do normalize actually working on our mental health and being okay with saying, hey, I'm going to cancel this concert because I need to work on my mental health today. And rather than judging people and being like, oh, that's not what you're doing. No, that really is probably what they're doing. And maybe you should do that for yourself. So, Ashley, I want to thank you so much for sitting down with me. Please let everyone know where they once again can keep up with you and see everything that you have going on.
You can find me on most social media platforms at Therapy with Ash or on my website, ashleymcgirt.com. And if you're interested in free therapy services, you can head to therapyfundfoundation.org.
Awesome. That is a wrap. And of course, until next episode of Rewind with Besa, you already know, keep that energy high.